The first thing I noticed was the heat waves rolling off a strip of fresh black asphalt like it was exhaling. I stepped on it and felt the give under my boot. It didn't belong in the middle of my hayfield, slicing through wind-brushed rows like a scar. Then came the sound. The distant whine of a prop engine, getting louder. A plane, heading straight toward me. I didn't flinch. I just folded my arms and waited. The aircraft swooped low, wheels kissing the unauthorized runway. Gravel popped, dust lifted. A bird scattered. The pilot killed the throttle and rolled to a stop. 20 feet from me. The canopy cracked open, and out climbed Evelyn Grace. HOA, president of the neighboring community, short, blonde bob, pearl earrings, and a smile built for telling other people no. She hopped down like she owned the place. "Beautiful, isn't it?" she said, gesturing to the asphalt slice. I stared at the cut fence. "This is my land." Her smile tightened. "Actually, our board approved an expansion of our community runway. You weren't using this space for anything important." My jaw didn't tighten. My voice didn't raise. But inside, a switch flipped. Because I wasn't just a farmer. Think you know what happens next? Subscribe. I was director of the Federal Aviation Administration. The petty harassment started 2 days later. A folded notice was tucked under the windshield of my truck. Unauthorized agricultural equipment, too close to community path. That path wasn't mine. Never had been. Next came a warning about grass height on the southern acreage. Incorrect. My plat map said otherwise. They thought intimidation worked on everyone. I've excavated a folder from my office drawer labeled Chain of Custody Local and started fresh. Every letter I received, every voicemail, every tire track across my property, logged it all. That evening, I ran a finger along the dried edge of the new asphalt. Still warm. Still curing. No permit stamp. No federal inspection. No environmental survey. No airspace coordination. A runway isn't just a road legally, it's aviation infrastructure. And aviation infrastructure is my playground. The next escalation was midnight. I woke to the distant sputter of a small aircraft engine. The house shook slightly as it passed overhead. I walked to the porch, sipping coffee like this was routine. Through binoculars, I watched landing lights flicker, bounce, and settle on my field. They were using it illegally. I grabbed my handheld digital recorder. 1:13 a.m. Unauthorized landing. Tail number, November Foxtrot, 844. I zoomed in on the door cam of the hangar they'd thrown up, without permission. The plane slid inside. The steel door clanged shut. Nice and recorded. Next morning. I drove fence line on my ATV. That's when I saw the bleach-damaged patches of grass, dead in neat squares. Exactly where survey stakes had been. Someone had tried to erase the original markers. I smiled. Survey stakes are cheap. Chain of custody stakes are not. Time to build allies. I called Mason, my go-to surveyor. "Bring your crew. We're conducting a boundary retrace, documented by video. Expect interference." He chuckled. "I'll bring extra stakes." Then I phoned Deputy Hall, County Sheriff's aviation liaison. We'd worked together on drone compliance. "Need eyes on a suspected illegal runway extension," I said. "Possible trespass, zoning, and airspace violation." His side told me everything. HOA, right? Bingo. Send me timestamps and tail numbers. I'll meet you there. At noon, Mason's truck rumbled across the property. The HOA board 3 men in polo shirts and sunglasses marched out to meet us, blocking our way like crossing guards on power trips. "This survey is invalid," one barked. Mason tapped the badge on his vest. "State-licensed land surveyor. Sectional plat says otherwise. Step aside." They did. Deputy Hall's cruiser rolled up behind them. Lights flicked on, once just a warning wink. The board scattered like pigeons. Mason raised his GPS rod and began sweeping. Numbers pinged. Coordinates locked. Boundary pins dropped precisely where the bleach scars were. Caught that evening. I drafted emails. To my office. Unpermitted runway expansion discovered. Possible federal airspace incursion. Advising immediate review. To county zoning. Suspected construction without permit. Attached photos of curing asphalt, landing activity, fence damage. 2. FAA environmental compliance. Runoff from asphalt, into agricultural irrigation channel. Every file attached, every timestamp accurate to the second. Paperwork, when done right, is a blade. At sunset, I sat on my porch again. The horizon glowed orange against the black ribbon through my field. I heard distant laughter. HOA pilots gathered at their clubhouse, satisfied with themselves. Sure, let them celebrate. They thought this was a local squabble, but runways aren't local. They're federal. I poured another cup of coffee and scrolled through dashcam footage, isolating the moments where landing gear touched my soil. Chain of custody was shaping up beautifully. I whispered to no one, "You paved the wrong farm." The next morning, the air smelled like burnt rubber and fertilizer. I followed the scent to the northern fence line. Fresh tire marks carved deep into soft earth, leading across my crops toward the illegal runway. Someone had carved a shortcut. I crouched, snapped photos, and pressed my thumb lightly into the grooves. Still pliable. Less than 6 hours old. My trail cam caught the culpriter. Red ATV with HOA decals. The rider never noticed the motion-activated status LED blinking in the dark. I downloaded the footage, labeled it, timestamped it, and added it to the folder. Evidence grows like a crop when you irrigate it. By noon, several white envelopes appeared on my porch, like mushroom spores. Noise violations, visual obstructions, even a threat to fine me for the presence of farm equipment visible from the community's scenic pathway. That pathway, once again, did not exist on my property. I walked through each letter, flattening them under my palm. The language was sloppy, the bylaws referenced were incorrect, and the signatures, copies, not originals. Sloppy paperwork can be more incriminating than no paperwork at all. I scanned them into my case. Filed. The HOA's next tactic was intimidation via aircraft. Small planes buzzed my farmhouse 3 times that week. Low passes well beneath recommended altitude. On the third pass, my windows rattled. My coffee rippled. I didn't get mad. I got metrics. I mounted a decibel meter on the porch rail and let my doorbell cam capture each overflight. Date, time, tail number. Altitude estimate by triangulation against the barn roofline. That night, I drafted a cease and desist using FAA circular language. Unapproved, low-altitude operations over agricultural structures may constitute reckless endangerment. Dry, precise, terrifying to anyone who knows what those words can do. I printed 3 copies and sent them. Certified. The following afternoon, Evelyn Grace marched up my drive, asphalt dust on her shoes, fury on her face. "You're harassing us with false reports," she snapped. I pointed at the AirTag on my keyring, which had tracked the ATV's midnight joyride straight onto my soil. "Actually," I said, "you're trespassing again." She blinked. "AirTags, really? They're small, cheap, admissible." Her jaw twitched. "This runway improves community value. We have every right." "You poured federally regulated pavement on agricultural land, without permits, inspections, or noise abatement filings. That's not value. That's liability." She stomped away. I recorded the exchange. Chain of custody, audio file, secured. That weekend, cattle feed sacks arrived on my porch, slashed open and spilling grain. A childish message. "Go back to the city," sprayed in orange paint. I sighed, snapped photos, and checked my house cameras. Clear footage of 2 HOA board members, hoodies up, giggling as they vandalized. I emailed Deputy Hall the clip. His reply pinged, seconds later. "Trespass plus property damage. Code black. I'll handle." Perfect. On Monday, the situation escalated. Beautifully drone footage from my neighbor caught a Piper Cub landing after sunset illegal, without approved lighting. I pulled the video, overlaid a timestamp from the drone's telemetry, and exported a clean clip. Then, I drafted a report for FAA enforcement. Unauthorized runway operations, night landings, no navigational lighting, possible violation of Part 91. Dry, punchy, factual, before hitting send. I added a note at the bottom. Disclosure. Reporting party holds directive leadership within the FAA. Not a threat, just context. I clicked submit. By Wednesday, retaliation smelled like chemicals. I found a trail of weed killer sprayed along my hay rows, a deliberate line, brown and curling. They wanted my field to look abandoned. I knelt, touched the dying tips, and felt heat from chemical burn. More evidence, so I mounted 2 more trail cams, aimed at the runway, concealed in weathered bird lens slits disguised behind carved eye holes. Motion activated, night vision enabled. That evening, I sat in my office, fluorescent light humming, as I watched grainy footage of HOA members taxiing aircraft across my soil, pointing out where they planned to expand further. They drew lines, literal and metaphorical, right through my livelihood. Fine. I'd show them what a line actually looks like. My next ally was Dr. Lin, environmental regulator. She stood at the irrigation channel, arms crossed, watching runoff from the curing asphalt trickle into the waterway. This, she said quietly, is a violation of 3 state codes and 1 federal. I filmed her expert assessment and record. Dr. Lin bagged a soil sample, labeled it meticulously, and handed me a copy of her testing order. Chain of custody expanded. That night, I set my alarm for 2 a.m. and brewed dark coffee. Outside, the chill bit through my jacket. In the distance, aircraft lights blinked. My trail cams pinged alerts to my phone, 1 by 1. Taxi, takeoff, landing, repeat. They were comfortable, complacent. Good, because I wasn't gathering evidence. Anymore, I was building a case file, heavy enough to crater an entire HOA. At dawn, I walked to the edge of the illegal runway. My boots sank slightly into soft earth where asphalt edges hadn't cured right. Expansion cracks were already forming. Amateur work. I whispered into the wind, "You paved the wrong farm, twice." The summons arrived on a Thursday, tucked into a glossy HOA newsletter like a rotten egg in an Easter basket. They were attempting to sue me for interference with community aviation amenities. The irony was so thick it could have been poured. I slid the paper into my increasingly fat evidence folder, clicked the retention clasps shut, and called my attorney. Harper Quinna, quiet predator, in a Navy suit. "Harper," I said, "they're escalating to civil action." She exhaled sharply. Perfect. That means discovery. The HOA had just opened its books to U.S. bank accounts, board communications, construction invoices. They'd given me a key to their vault. That afternoon, I stood with Harper and Deputy Hall at the runway's edge. Fresh survey stakes marked my property boundaries in neon orange. 2 HOA members gawked from a distance, arms folded like bouncers. Hall glanced at the illegal runway. "You sure you want to go nuclear?" I nodded. "We already launched." Discovery revealed everything we hoped for. Unlicensed contractors, forged signatures on board approvals, misappropriation of community funds, no environmental assessment, no FAA coordination. Harper grinned. "We're not just talking fines. We're talking fraud." She slid a printed screenshot toward me. Internal emails bragging about redirecting budget funds to accelerate runway expansion before the landowner notices. Oops. The court date was set for a Friday morning, but the real showdown started Thursday night. I arranged a sting knot, dramatic, just methodical. The plan was simple. Catch illegal operations on camera with multiple agencies watching. I contacted FAA enforcement, county zoning, environmental compliance, and the sheriff's aviation unit. They all parked quietly along the fence line, headlights off. Watching through binoculars, right on schedule, a Cessna dipped too low, flared, and landed tires screeching over the line between legal and criminal. Another aircraft lined up behind it. I hit record on my phone. The agent scribbled notes. FAA officers approached with clipboards. One pilot stumbled out of the cockpit, pale. "What's going on?" he asked. "Nothing unusual," I answered. "Just federal law." Court the next morning smelled like polished wood and nerves. The HOA board sat at the plaintiff's table, pale and sweating. Evelyn wore a blazer, the color of panic. Harper stood, smooth as a landing on calm air. "Your Honor," she began, "we move for summary judgment on grounds of illegal trespass, environmental damage, unauthorized aircraft operations, and fraudulent misuse of HOA funds." She slid the enormous evidence folder onto the table. It hit with a satisfying thunk. Paperwork as payload. The judge flipped through pages, eyebrows climbing like altitude. You have video evidence of night landings? Yes, Your Honor. 3 angles, and soil contamination, certified by a state environmental regulator. And fraudulent signatures, analyzed by 2 experts. The HOA's attorney swallowed so hard the room heard it. Then came the twist. The judge tapped his pen. Director, I see your role within the FAA. In the gallery, whispers spread. This runway, the judge continued, constitutes federal aviation infrastructure, which means jurisdiction supersedes local HOA authority. And since no application was filed, he paused, letting the silence suffocate. Every aircraft that's landed here did so in violation of federal regulation. He looked at the HOA board. You've built a lawsuit against yourselves. Consequences came fast. The runway was ordered closed. Asphalt to be removed at their expense under supervision. Fines stacked like cordwood. Board members were removed from their positions. Several faced personal liability for misused funds. Evelyn's face went chalk white. And, the judge added, the landowner is awarded damages for all agricultural losses, legal fees, and property restoration. Harper nodded, satisfied. The payload had landed, after court. The HOA tried one last week spin. This was just a misunderstanding, Evelyn pleaded. I shook my head. Misunderstandings don't need bleach, forged signatures, or night landings. Deputies escorted her away politely. 2 months later, I stood at the field's edge again. The runway was ganja-cammered into broken chunks, hauled off in noisy trucks. Grass sprouts pushed through the scar like nature stitching a wound. My cattle grazed peacefully. Where landing gear once rolled. Dr. Lynn's final soil report came back clean. Deputy Hall waved from his cruiser, satisfied. Mason's survey stakes now stood bright and unchallenged. All quiet. I took a slow sip of coffee, watching sunlight shimmer over restored rows. People ask what the lesson was. It's simple. Boundaries matter. Land matters. And communities work best when power doesn't fly out of control. I tapped my phone's camera roll, rows of videos, photos, timestamps, proof that patience beats panic. Then I looked at the lens and smiled. Drop your story in the comments, I said softly, because there's always another runway someone tries to pave where they shouldn't.